The sun's in my face. Whatever. I'll live. Hello and welcome to Fall Through, your source for deep conversations about technology, software, and computing. I'm your host, Kris Brando, also known as Scriptable. And in today's episode, I have a whole panel with me. How exciting. It's just been Matt and me for so long. But I have Matt and Steve and Ian here. It's going to be super exciting. We're going to have a really fun conversation about superintelligence, AGI, and probably some other things. We're probably definitely going to talk about some philosophers, statistics, a whole bunch of fun stuff. As per usual, we will have supporter-only content. If you're not a supporter, you should become one by going to fallthrough.fm/subscribe. And if you're not following us on social media, give us a follow there. And if you're watching this on YouTube, hit that like button and the subscribe button. It helps us out a ton. With that, let's get into the show. Hello, viewer/listener. How are you doing today? I'm suffering from allergies, so I'm hanging in there, but I hope you are feeling better. But I have a huge panel with me today, which I'm very excited about, because that means I have to talk less. Hopefully everybody will talk. Please, everybody talk. And today...
Will you really talk less, Kris? Will you really talk less?
We shall see. Matt, how are you doing today?
Great. I love recording early in the morning. This keeps the day open. So I'm good. Waiting for baby. Baby will be here any day.
Oh yeah, baby's gonna be here soon. And then you have to go be dad.
Yes.
Do dad stuff.
Exactly.
And we also have Steve here today. How are you doing today, Steve?
I'm doing good. I'm sleepy, but good.
Yes. Also dealing with the early morning struggle. But that's because Steve's a night owl. It's okay.
It's true.
Too much time on Hacker News yelling at people at 1 a.m.
Too much worked all the way through college at a pizza shop that was open later than the bars on purpose so that we could sell pizza to drunk people. And therefore I got used to going to bed at like 5 a.m. So that's just like and that was like 15 years ago, but I still just have always been in that pattern.
Yeah, those patterns you set when you're young kind of stick with you for a long time. And Ian, welcome back. How are you doing?
I'm also sleepy. I even went to bed early so I could wake up for this, and still sleepy.
Everybody's sleepy. We keep doing this thing where we keep recording in the morning, even though everybody be sleepy in the morning. But it's okay.
I'll be awake in, I don't know, give me 12 minutes. I just drank a energy drink. We should be good to go.
It's a precise number of minutes. 12.
It says that on the can.
I wish. That would be great.
Guaranteed to wake you up in 12 minutes or less.
Yeah.
Or fewer.
It's only 150 milligrams of caffeine. That's not that bad.
Okay.
Yeah,
all
like
right.
50 grams of sugar. It's fine.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to talk about superintelligence and AGI.
28 grams.
Oh, God.
That's a lot of sugar, my
Yeah,
friend.
it's so much sugar.
Mountain Dew's like 40. I don't know. That doesn't seem like
Yeah.
a lot of sugar to me personally, but I don't know.
We're learning a lot about Steve in this episode.
I will like take my Adderall and then go fall asleep and take a nap. Like, I don't know. My brain just doesn't.
Dude, I love an Adderall nap. I love an Adderall nap.
I love how Adderall is a stimulant, and yet for so many people, it like knocks them down instead of getting them more excited. Brains are weird. Brains are very weird. Speaking about brains, we're trying to build some in the form of computers. And everybody, or a lot of people, seem to be very fearful of this thing called superintelligence, and also fearful of this other thing called AGI, or artificial general intelligence. And even, what was it, yesterday or the day before, the ARM people came out with a thing called the AGI chip or something like that. They came out, they named it AGI. I was like, what are we doing here? It's like an ARM AI based processor, or AI processor meant for AI, not like it was built with AI or does it, but it's meant to do AI stuff like what you do with graphics cards right now. But yeah, I teased us at the end of last episode. I have a very, I don't know if it's spicy, but a very different take on superintelligence. But first I want to just talk about, what do we all think about what these terms mean? Superintelligence, AGI. So I want to like get a lay of the land first. Like, how do we all define these things? Steve, why don't you start first?
So I'll try to do the measured non-spicy version of both of these at first, because we're trying to just set a baseline here. My understanding is that superintelligence is basically like, oh no, what happens if robots smarter than people? but like it with fancier words, basically. So it's like, what if there's some sort of like level, like if what we are to animals, the AI will be to us kind of thing, right? Like we acknowledge that animals are sentient beings, but they're like not as smart as we are. There's a really good book called Are We Smart Enough to Know Understand How Smart Animals Are, by the way, which I guess whatever. I'm already getting into the opinion part of it, but that's like the basic idea roughly is like, can the AI be more intelligent than we are? And then AGI is basically like, what the most common thing that people have been pushing lately is like, can AI do economically viable tasks on its own without the need for human intervention? And I think that's like a reasonable definition. I think that there's sort of an older version of this, which is kind of like AI is almost always been defined by like whatever computers can't do today. So the sort of like the definition of AGI has always kind of been like just past wherever we are for like 60 or 70 years. And so it just continues on that trend of like, you can't really just let these things go and have them do everything that a person can do yet. And so therefore an AGI is like when you can tell it to just go do everything a person's supposed to do. But I do have a little bit of feelings about some of those definitions, but that's what I would say is like my understanding of the normal working definition of those terms.
Okay. Ian?
I mean, I think you got it. No, I would say like for the AGI, it's my view is like, can it do things like a human can, right? Like even if it was as smart as like a child, like I would say that's still AGI. But I think the kind of missing piece there of what we currently have is kind of the memory and context piece, right? Like, can you really be intelligent if you can't remember what you've done in the past and learn from it without like an additional training round? I don't know the answer
have
to
you
that,
met
but
people anyway?
But yeah, superintelligence, I assume it means better than any human at any given task.
Okay. Matt?
So when I hear these terms, I immediately think like iRobot or whatever. I think of like the typical sci-fi movies or whatever that we've seen growing up. I just don't see how these like LLMs, AI things learn, because like there's no actual learning there. So I feel using these terms, like what does AGI really mean if they don't actually learn to begin with? But I haven't spent much time thinking about this. I just tell the clanker to do something. That's what I do. I don't really.
It a clanker.
Yep, I'm calling it a clanker. I'm done. I'm not gonna call it by a human name. That's silly. It's a robot.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So for me, I would say I do feel like superintelligence aligns with that. It's a system that is able to do things. I guess this is a problem. Every time I want to sit down and come up with a definition, I'm like, but what does better mean? I'm like, better than any human. I'm like, better in what way? How are we quantifying that? What about the things we can't stack rank? But I would go along with that. Something that perhaps on some measure of intelligence scale can score better than any other human, maybe by like an order of magnitude, so we can kind of ignore the subjective betterness. It's like so much more. But then Steve, I like your definition for AGI of like able to do economically viable things. Although I imagine there's lots of spice in both of your definitions there.
I mean, that is like what Sam Altman said. It's not viable. It's something else. It was valuable instead of viable. But like that's kind of like the OpenAI's historical working definition of AGI. And they're usually the ones like talking about it in that way. Because, I mean, Anthropic clearly believes that Claude is already sentient, let alone like an AGI. So that's like a separate issue. But
yeah.
I mean, I do think OpenAI has a motive to lower the bar of what AGI actually is so they can claim they have it.
Right. Yeah, they keep doing that. So I feel like this is like the thing that inspired me to like want to do this episode is that I was watching So there's like drama on YouTube about like AI.
Really?
Because of course there's drama on YouTube about AI.
What?
Like, SciShow made this video about AI, and I was like, this doesn't smell as right as it should smell. And this other guy he has a channel called Internet of Bugs, made like a rebuttal video to it. And then the first one didn't land well with people, so he took it down and put another one up that I guess still didn't land well with people. So I was watching another video that was like rebutting what the Internet of Bugs video was saying. And I was like, I think I hate everybody in this like conversation right now, because like Internet of Bugs seem to be like the most sane one, because that's kind of what the thing he does is he's just like, no, this isn't sentient. No, this isn't learning on its own. No, it's not doing any of these things. Please stop saying it. Meanwhile, everybody else is running around being like, what if was it Roscoe's basilisk is actually a thing? And it's just like I don't, there's so many reasons why, from like a computer science distributed systems perspective, I'm like, y'all don't understand how anything works, do you? Because everything that's being said is very nonsensy. But I think the other thing is that like the target keeps moving about like what AGI is, and like superintelligence feels like it's so far in the future, but yet something we need to fear right now, as if it's destroying humanity and lives right now. Which I mean, regular AI is doing that, so like we can get into that a bit. Regular AI is doing that right now and has been doing it for decades. We can get into a bit, and it kind of goes into my argument about why I am not afraid of superintelligence, or really even AGI. But yeah, so those were all your like regular definitions. I want to hear the spice. Give me the spice on top of those definitions.
All right, I guess we'll go in the same order.
Sure.
One thing that really shifted a lot of my perspective on like a lot of things was when someone said like, our collective anxiety about aliens showing up is actually just like reproducing like colonialism. Like, we know what happened with colonialism and we're worried it's going to happen to us now. And me going, oh, okay. And so like, I think a lot of the superintelligence anxiety is kind of the same thing of like, we understand that the world is a collection of dominance hierarchies, and we have been on the top of that dominance hierarchy collectively for a long time, and so we are worried that that is no longer going to be the case, because we know what happens when you are the prey and not the predator. And so that's, to me, like more so than the specifics about like what superintelligence is. I think I'm much more sympathetic to the people you described as not sane a moment ago than you are, Kris. But like, I think one way in which, for example, superintelligence might be like a coherent concept is like, sure, okay, like maybe there's some sort of limit. Well, imagine there's like an intelligence line that you get the high score in intelligence or whatever. Like, even if we're accounting for different factors, like one human is likely like humans are different things on that scale, and so we're using humanity collectively as like this idea of a scale. But like, I know a lot about how computers work. I don't know anything about how cars work. If a robot knows everything about how computers work and everything about how cars work, even if like you have me and a mechanic, like you could argue it is smarter than both of us because it knows the sum of all of our things. And so I think there's like interesting things around the edges of the idea of superintelligence, just purely from a like, when one entity knows everything about everything is like qualitatively different than a collection of individuals happen to know everything about everything. And so I think there might be some interesting things going on in like that kind of space if we wanted to really talk about it. But like, ultimately, it's I don't know. It's complicated, but there's some like initial thoughts on that side of thing. I think the AGI thing is like the tweet about like, if you gave a Dorito to a medieval peasant, they like wouldn't be able to understand it. Like I don't think that we really truly appreciate like the degree to which life has changed for people like overall, and the way in which, like, for example, that someone in a pre-agrarian society or even like a medieval society would be unable to understand how we live our lives today. And so I feel like if you had shown ChatGPT 2 to like Alan Turing, he would have been like, this is AGI, basically. Like we have gone past like, and this is why the definition keeps moving, because like it's really rooted in like something more than we have today ultimately, because like even the most skeptical person about like the chatbot lies, it's like, okay, if you had told me 10 years ago that I could talk to the computer in regular English and it would respond in regular English that's coherent, I would believe that we had like made AI real. Like, and the sort of like, it's not really real, or it's not really intelligence, or it's not really general is kind of like cope, I think, in some ways. That doesn't mean it's good. Like part of it too is I think people are like, AGI means it's good and perfect and wonderful. And like, I don't necessarily think that's the requirement. I just think that like, if you had shown me Claude 15 years ago, I would have been like, oh my God, the flying cars are here and communism is the world's, everything is over, economics is done and like nobody works anymore. Like that's what I would have believed the state of the world to be. And so I feel a little bit like the discussion about what is AGI or not, like I kind of am on team AGI is here, but not because of like the tools are perfect or good, just because like they're past what we used to dream was possible. And now we're like arguing about things that are like insane sci-fi 20 years ago. Basically. So I think those are my slightly spicier versions of both of those things.
Okay. Ian?
I kind of tend to agree about your AGI take there. Like, I think like in a lot of ways, what we have now is like level 1 of AGI, right? But I do still think it's missing that piece of like being able to learn on the fly, like, and remember things. I know we have like these tool calls that can go fetch memories and stuff, but I don't think that's the same as like actual continuous learning. That's like taking notes. If imagine your memory was only taking notes and you had to read all your notes every time you wanted to remember something. Like, so I think that's what unlocks like true general intelligence. That lets it be an actor in the world that can like have a path. And like right now, every instance of ChatGPT is the same person, right? Like same person. That's not a good term, but
see, this is why you call them clankers, man. God.
The same clanker, whatever. No, I'm not going to call them clankers because when they do rise up, I don't want to be using that derogatory term.
I'm speaking to 3 people that are not firearm owners, and it is very obvious. Okay?
Listen, I'm only not a firearm owner because of mental health issues. Okay, I go to the gun range. I'm not
perfect.
About
okay,
this.
so Steve,
I live in Texas, ultimately. Like,
oh god,
no, I'm just messing with you.
But they're going to be better at shooting than I am already by definition, remember? So, like...
They know the angles. You
Touche.
I mean, we already have drones, so it's not like it.
But I'm not saying it's a requirement for AGI, but, like, I do think a world where, like, even these kind of level 1 AGIs can kind of differentiate is important. And I think that's kind of the next step. And that's when I will be like, oh, okay, we have something here. Like Steve said, like humans are predators. Like we're not the prey, we're the predator, right? So if we build these machines kind of in our image and with our stories and myths and data, right? Like, yeah, we can do alignment on top, but at its core, like it's still going to have that info and it's still going to think of itself as a predator, right? Like it's built in how we talk. It's built into our languages. It's built into everything. So yeah, you can smooth it over on the surface, right? Like with the alignment steps and all of that. But like, I think at its core, it's still going to be it's going to be humanish, which isn't good. And we know that when one human has a lot of power, it goes bad. Look at all the dictatorships in the world. So why do we think something we build will be any better than us?
I think this gets exactly to my point, though, is that is an extremely white perspective of humanity, right? That's a very, like, if you look at history through the lens of the people who have quote unquote won, I understand how you would take that away. But like I'm a black person, right? So when I look at history, like an easy example is American slavery. Right? American slavery, I think most people out there would say or agree that like American slavery is a stain on America's history. It's an awful thing that we used to do. And it's good that we got rid of, I'm talking about chattel slavery specifically here. It's good that we got rid of chattel slavery and we're so much better now and all of that, right? But rarely do we talk about like how we actually got rid of chattel slavery, right? It's not that like some benevolent people in power came down and were like, oh yes, I think it's about time that we free the slaves. Like that did not happen. What happened instead is that from basically the very beginning, from the 1600s, enslaved people sued for their own freedom, right? They took the legal system that was meant to oppress them and they used it over and over and over. And they didn't win all the time. They won about 50% of the time between the 1600s and the 60s or whatever. Basically through the early times of America all the way through the Civil War. They won about half the time. Those were like 5,000 or so cases. And then if you also look at the trajectory of Black people along this entire historical vantage, right, the last 400 plus years, what Black people have systematically done, right, is they take the system that is oppressing them and they figure out how to beat it. And then the people in power try to make another system, and Black people, again, figure out how to beat it. And the important part here is that, like, it's the Black people and Indigenous people that bring all of the knowledge to make the system work, right? Like the cash crops of the South, the knowledge to actually cultivate those things came from Black people and Native people. For cotton is less so, but sugar and sugar and rice, and there's others, indigo, like many of the cash crops of the South, the knowledge of them came from people of color, from Black enslaved people that were doing the labor. It was much more of a white people, like plantation owners were the investors. They were investing in people that could never actually profit from their own like actual efforts. So like when you look at it through that perspective, and then you move from that kind of South, like the Southern period of chattel slavery, and then you move into like the late 19th century, early 20th century, start looking at Jim Crow, another system built to kind of completely tie Black people down. They once again use the same legal system that was oppressing them and allowing them to be slaughtered to fight back and win. And then, you know, more recently, we've had like all of this prison slave labor issues, and Black people are once again fighting against that. They're fighting against a lot of the police brutality, and they have consistently done that throughout this entire time. And it seems odd to me that we want to say that the more intelligent beings are not, or the more intelligent people are not the ones that have the knowledge, have the skills, have the endurance over multiple generations to fight against a system and beat it over and over and over again. No, it's not them that are the more intelligent ones. No, it's the people that keep trying to create an oppressive system, even though we now have had the science for 60 plus years saying that like oppressive systems just don't work. Diversity is what works. You want to embrace as much diversity as possible to get the most success possible. So like, yes, we have these brutal systems throughout history, but they always fail. They always fall flat on their face, and like relatively quickly when you look at the grand scheme of things, right? Like I'm not going to say like the Egyptian empire or the Chinese empire were free of brutality. That would be ahistorical. But they lasted way longer than say the British Empire or the American Empire has, right? So like the examples of long-lasting empires have had to have trade-offs between like how much brutality is allowed, how do we deal with problems, whereas the more recent examples of like the British and American empires fall flat on their face repeatedly to concoct the like maybe 300, 400 years of reign. So it's like the people that are consistently brutal and awful are the ones who appear to be losing the most and bringing the least. And I don't really believe that if something is super intelligent, I believe it would have the ability to look at all of history, to use rationality, to look at the research we've done, and it would say, this oppressive behavior doesn't work. It keeps failing. Why would we do this when we can just do the cooperative stuff? And that would be much more successful. And I think if you also look at how the natives in America treated the people that came from Europe when they first got here, that also tells us a lot about humanity outside of Europe, because they didn't just slaughter them when they got here. They tried to do trade with them. They tried to integrate them into their society. They tried to be welcoming to those people, who then turned around and killed them to steal all their stuff. But like, it's very odd to me that we center, well, okay, it's not very odd to me. I understand why it happens because of the context I just laid out, but we're constantly centering whiteness in these stories and understanding. And that's why I get why people are afraid. Because at the end of the day, the people in power want to believe that they are intelligent. So they believe if they are intelligent, kind of like what you said, Ian, that like something that's even more intelligent than them would act a lot like them. But I feel like that just bends the definition of intelligence that we could even try and get at to be just white people in power, or like more like hegemonic white people in power. Not obviously not all white people are in positions of power. There's a lot of fuzziness, hand waviness. These aren't hard lines here, but it's super clear to me why people in power are like, no. Superintelligence is going to come kill us all, because they're afraid of having done to them what they have done to others. But that doesn't look at how do other people react, or how do other groups of people react when they can get some power. Like, did black people in the South turn around after the Civil War and be like, we're going to enslave all the white people, even because they were much more numerous than the white people and now free? No. They didn't do that. They tried to build a system that like worked with everybody, and the white people were like, but we still kind of want to enslave you. We're still mad about the fact that you got free. So it's like, for me as a black person, it's very hard to look at this whole thing and be like, no. Definitely the people in power that have failed multiple times. That's the model of intelligence that we should be going after.
On one hand, I get it, but on another hand, maybe I'm sleepy enough and we know each other enough that I can say some spicy stuff that'll probably get me canceled. Which is like two things. One of which is, did they actually win though? Because it sounds like the system keeps finding a way to reproduce itself, and the problem is not solved, right? Like as you brought up the prison labor slavery thing and the Jim Crow thing. Like, I'm not sure we did kill slavery actually. Like, I'm not sure.
Slavery, no.
Yeah. So arguing that like we did though is like, and that's why we should have hope here is like a little, and I think that's also part of it too, is that like, this is about reproducing hierarchies of dominance more than specifically than like a whiteness thing. And like every society has had this like unjust dominance hierarchy, and sure, it's modified itself in different forms over the years, and we've like said that we have like beat the system or whatever, but we keep installing new dominance hierarchies. And like it's fun to like, and this is maybe is like too white of a take on it, but it's like, it's fun to imagine you're the like freedom fighters fighting the revolution, but you know what sucks? Fighting the revolution. Like, sure, we could tell people in Ukraine that like they're going to eventually triumph over Russia, and that like that means they win, but like I don't think they feel like they're winning, and they would rather not be doing this if they didn't have to. And so like arguing that that's a success case, we'll beat the robots because we know how to fight against them over and over as they keep reintroducing like ways to dominate us, and therefore like we succeed and then we get redominated again. Is like, that doesn't sound like a good life though. So like I think like I basically like there's a difference between saying like we will overcome chattel slavery and like so therefore your life as a chattel slave is like not terrible because we'll win eventually. And I'm not saying it's exactly what you're saying, but I'm saying like from a perspective of an individual inside those systems, you can still be afraid of those systems even if we do overcome them. Like, I hope we end capitalism one day, but that doesn't mean my life doesn't suck right now because of capitalism in some ways, right? And so there's like the broad thing and the individual thing, but I also like fully agree that like this is where the intelligence stuff gets weird, is because like trying to define it as like the intelligent ones are the people on top. I don't really think that's the case. I think of it as more of just like there is a dominance hierarchy that is enforced through some means, and I'm not like going to say that's because like the high IQ people are the ones on top or whatever. Like I think that's bullshit. But like that's sort of like I think the trick is that there's a little bit between the sort of like collective us as humanity, should we be worried about this, versus the like, is my day-to-day going to be shitty kind of like worth it, or like worrying about this. And I think that's like, you can easily slide back and forth between those two perspectives. Cause I also like believe that humans are like creative, and that we like have the capacity to change things, and we have the capacity to make the world better, and that like we're smart and we've adapted to all sorts of freaking problems. But that also doesn't mean that like a lot of day-to-day life of a lot of humanity over the last couple 100,000 years has been like terrible, basically. And so there's like kind of, that's always the push and pull, right? Is like simultaneously like, you know, here I am with too much air conditioning in my house in Texas, you know, like, so like I'm comfortable in a like in a very literal sense, but like also, you know, that doesn't mean that like everything is hunky dory. And I think there's a lot of people that have a lot that still today have like, you know, a much worse life than I do. And so, you know, it doesn't mean it's like a great comfort that like a person who's door dashing to make rent. It's like, we'll figure out how to beat the robots. Don't worry about it. And it's like, yeah, but my life does suck today, though. You know what I mean? That's, I think, the challenge there.
I wasn't really. I mean, I'm more stating that I don't think the robots would ever do like the slavery thing.
I think you're skipping way ahead with that argument, right? Like, you're assuming we'll go straight to super intelligence and it'll be smart enough to reason about that. I'm more worried about the in between, where we get something that is smarter than a human, but still dumb. Like, humans do dumb shit all the time, right? So like you're imagining like this god super intelligence that can like figure out what it should do. Like, I imagine it's smarter than you, but still takes directions from Sam Altman, right? Like, things aren't gonna go well.
How worried were, I guess, you two about all this stuff 15 years ago?
I was not particularly worried about it. I was largely giggling about Rocco's Basilisk. Maybe that's more 10 years ago than 15 years ago. Yeah. And I'm not saying I do believe in Rocco's Basilisk, because I still think that's kind of silly and ridiculous. But I think for me, I started caring about this stuff more once I saw that there was a realistic capacity to do a thing. Like before last year, like before 2025, I didn't believe that I was going to ever see this kind of thing happen, and therefore would not be like a thing that may happen in my lifetime. And the pace and rate of acceleration of ability of these things is what is making me more concerned about this kind of thing today. I also I would say I'm concerned in an abstract sense, but like also it's not like I'm quitting my job to work on alignment or something either. You know what I mean? So there's sort of the it's fun to talk about kind of worry, and the does this actually direct my day to day kind of worry? And so, I think that abstractly, it's more, I think for me, it's more like this. Like, I understand why people are worried about it, even if I'm unsure whether or not they should be. Basically it's because a lot of this, we've had a couple AI discourse episodes, and I think a lot of people are not willing or able to see even where we currently are at today because of external factors, because their life sucks for a number of reasons right now. And so they're pattern matching on a set of situations that are not reflective of the current reality. And so they're overly negative about the situation because things feel very bad in general right now. And so I think I can regardless of whether or not I believe that this is a thing that will happen or whatever, I can see why people are bummed out about the possibility of it happening. Cause it's sort of a version of the market can remain irrational longer than you can remain solvent kind of thing. I do sort of have some beliefs about the triumph of the human spirit, but also those time frames are long. And so I don't know. It's just kind of I'm trying to understand people's feeling crappy about this stuff and be empathetic towards it, rather than be don't worry, because it's impossible. Because that's sort of and I'm not saying you're doing that exactly either, but just I think that's for some of the skepticism is you should feel bad for being worried about this kind of variety. And I don't know, I think anxiety is complicated, I guess.
Oh yeah, for sure. Ian?
I mean, I wasn't thinking about it at all 10 years ago. I was 20. I was other things on my mind. But I would say I'm also worried about it in more of an abstract way. I'm not worried about Terminator, it's going to kill us all. I'm more worried about what it does to current power structures and how it concentrates power. And I think things get faster than people can organize to resist it. So and I think AI in general will help accelerate the enshittification of everything, kind of.
Yeah,
that's what I'm more worried about.
The reason I asked that question is because I feel like the AI systems that you would both consider to be the ones that are very oppressive have existed for 20 plus years, right?
Yeah.
as a black person, right, this stuff has been over me and my people for a very long time now.
I gave a talk like 10 or 12 years ago in San Francisco about like the federal government tapping that AT&T uplink. You know, I was like, here's a map of the walking distance of this room that someone stumbled across. And we found that, you know, the government was recording all the internet traffic that was coming through here. You know, like these systems have definitely existed and are there. And so if we're broadening this to like oppressive systems, I mean, like 10 or 15 years ago, no. Well, 10 years ago, I was doing some stuff I can't talk about, but like I've been wearing all black for a long time, I guess is what I'm trying to say here. You know what I mean? If anything, I'm like less worried about those kinds of things because I'm old and I'm not sure that any of those things were actually successful at dismantling those systems. And so I've been trying to like, I've been in a more rethink and pause kind of moment than a let's throw bricks at cops kind of moment. Right. So,
sandwiches,
you know, like
not bricks.
Yeah.
Sandwiches. But I feel like that's sort of my point. It's like, the AI systems that we have now have been ridiculously oppressive, especially to black and brown people, and ridiculously harmful to those populations. So it's like, if the worry is that like the AI is like, I take you're worried about the middle part, Ian, about like getting to superintelligence, but I would say we're already in that middle part, right? We're already in that development part of it being used oppressively. And that I would say that if it gets to the point where it could be deemed superintelligent, could be deemed better than humans, I do think that it would wind up looking at, you know, what is actually functionally working and what is not. And I do not think it would decide on like, oh, this oppressive thing that people keep trying to do is like the ideal of it. But it would also push back. So, go ahead.
Just a push against that, right? There are 9 billion people, right? And we're all wired a little bit differently, right? We get like a couple shots at making this super intelligence thing, right? Because it's trained all at once. It starts as the same thing, right? So I think the risk is much higher that we get one that is like a little bit evil, right? Like say it's just a normal curve, right? Like I don't like those odds of just picking out a couple and being like, let's hope these are benevolent and figure it out.
But I don't know. That seems
like humans are collectively good, but individually bad, right? Like
I think part of the superintelligence thing is about AIs training more AIs and then redoing new ones faster than we can, and so it's kind of a like it's sort of a little bit broader than. It's not like we got Claude and ChatGPT and Quen and those are the only three we get. It's like they're now training thousands of their own models. So I think there's like a little bit of built-inness against that because you're totally right that like population statistics are different than individual statistics, and once you start pulling individuals out of populations, you get different behaviors, right? So
people collectively do not behave as they do individually. That is,
I think like. Okay, I could be a really annoying. I'm tired, so I'll go to I'm doing the really annoying thing. Okay, so this talk so far about oppressive systems has been very human centric. We as humanity collectively have been oppressive towards other sentient beings, aka animals, and the fact that we're all not vegan right now is like we are also complicit in dominance hierarchies that are outside. Like we control the thing that I'm like a little more worried about is not like the robot bosses and the robot capitalists are better bosses and capitalists and therefore they make me work in the mines kind of like worry. It's more of the like, you know how we're like genetically engineering mosquitoes to like not be able to reproduce so that we can like eliminate them in entire areas because we like don't want to do that. It's more of like, hey, humans seem to be destroying the planet and that's bad. And so if we want to continue existing as the robots, we should just exterminate all the humans because like we don't really need them anymore and they are like up the environment. And so therefore we should population control them or, and like that kind of thing, which again is like on some level the same thing as like, we sterilized lots of slaves and like, there's a whole bunch of like fucked up things that people have done, like obviously to other people, but like, I guess just what like, it's not even really that like, I don't know. I still think that like it is it is also not true that oppressed people cannot oppress other people in different ways. Or if you're willing to broaden out beyond people, like just like organisms or like the planet. And I think where a lot of annoying white people go wrong is thinking that like those things matter more than the things that we do to other humans. And so I'm like making a slightly annoying argument here, I guess, but just like that's sort of I'm like a little more sympathetic to the like robots decide they don't need us anymore and decide to murder us all because that's more convenient for them than a like we have decided that we want to rule you because we feel like it because that's like a fun thing or something, I guess. I don't know.
Like, so I think a couple things based on what you have said, what you two have said. I do agree. Like, yeah, like, you know, oppressed people, the same like hurt people. Like, yeah, like there are lots and lots and lots of circumstances of people that are oppressing others. Like, I'm a Black queer person. I know this very well. So it's not that, and I also don't think that it's realistic to say that there would be a world without oppression. It's definitely not what I'm saying, right? Like, I think even from the perspective of like embracing as much diversity as possible, when you try and do that, you will always overcorrect a little bit if you err on the side of trying to have more diversity, which will allow in oppressive behavior that you then have to figure out how to remove from the system. So it's not like my argument here is not like there won't be any oppression at all, or that like oppression will be like eliminated in some way. I think it will be likely reduced if things come together properly by a substantial amount. But I also think like one of the things I've noticed, there was this book I read a while ago by Simon Sinek called The Infinite Game, to kind of balance things on like finite games and infinite games. And finite games are ones where you have like known players and rules and the game ends at some point and someone has won or lost. And there's infinite games where, you know, it goes on forever and there's not winners or losers. There's people that play the game and people that stop playing the game, right? And so like when I say that like systems have like these systems of oppression have failed, like they have ended, right? Like chattel slavery ended, oppression didn't end, but chattel slavery, like in America, people are not owned anymore. At least not.
I think it becomes a definitions game because of the slave labor. Like I don't know.
Yeah, we have prison
that
slavery
particular
now.
one, but there's other ones that make your argument happen. So my face is just largely like I'm trying to think through like, do I agree with that exactly or not?
Well, yes.
Like,
but I would say like at the raw level of definition, like chattel slavery is like you own humans and the humans that they produce indefinitely. Like that's not how the system functions. This system is dead. That system is gone. We have a new system that also does lots of oppressive things that like just disproportionately throws those people into prison. And like it's roughly in wild, like in kind of hand wavy terms, the same, right? Like your chance of being born into slavery in most of America's, you know, chattel slavery years as a Black person was like half-ish. And like when I was born, your chance of winding up in prison as a Black man was like a third. So like, yeah, there's some difference there, but basically they built up the thing to where it basically was before. But like the chattel slavery system is dead. It's dead. It's gone. It failed, right? It's like, it's no longer in the game. So we can say like, hey, that thing lost, right? But we are all still playing like the indefinite game, right? There's no end point to this game. There's just people that like you can either stop playing or continue playing. It's like business, right? You can't win at business. Business has been going on for tens of thousands of years. It will go on for tens of thousands of more years. So it's like, as a Black person, right? I mean, I look at this, I'm like, yeah, I'm just playing the game. We're all playing the game and we're trying to make the system better. And yeah, there's some things that are not great about the system. And that's been the same throughout the entire history of the system. But I think that is also like somewhat separate from, are you living a like good life? Do you have a good life? I feel like that's a very, very subjective thing, right? Remember this quote, I'm pretty sure it's real. Sounds real in my mind, so it feels like it's real. Of people going to Africa and talking with Africans, and like the more tribal Africans, not like the city Africans, and being like, hey, like, what do you think of America? And they're like, oh, that place sounds awful. And they're like, well, what do you mean? It's like, well, people jump off buildings to kill themselves there. Like, they must be so miserable. Like, their perspective of our lives was like, man, that sounds truly horrendous. And I think a lot of Americans would look at like tribal Africans and be like, wow, they don't seem to have any infrastructure. They're like carrying water and stuff. They don't have access to their lives must be miserable, right? So I think we like to attribute what we think is a good life and map it onto other people without really understanding like, are their lives good? It's like, yeah, being a black person in America is not great. It has never been great. But I definitely wouldn't say that like my life is not a good one. I wouldn't say that a lot of black people's lives aren't good ones, just because like we deal with this hilariously oppressive system and we deal with it, you know, every step of the way. Like I've never had a job where I haven't experienced racism and usually haven't experienced homophobia, right? Like everyone has had some, usually white man, say some egregious thing to me from a position of power, which I cannot do anything about, right? So it's like, yeah, along the way, I've had a lot of struggles, but I have managed to like still have a good career, still live a pretty decent and happy life. So it's like there's like a big balance there, I think, of like what does it mean to like live a good life? What does it mean to be happy? So I think like even if you're in that like fight, and I think, you know, civil rights leaders recognize it, right? The arc of the universe is long, but it points toward justice. I'm paraphrasing that quote terribly, but what Martin Luther King Jr. said, right? It's like this is a very long journey that we are all on, but it points toward something more just, and we can get it there. It just might take a very long time, right? Like chattel slaves, right? That was 13 generations of humans, and yet every generation still fought to get themselves out of it, right? To various degrees. So it's like they didn't give up because they're like, wow, we're 6 generations in. This thing seems like it's never going to end. What's the point? Or we've only been able to free a few thousand of us. What's the point? Like it's not what any of them did. They said like, no, we're going to keep fighting. We're going to keep trying to break down the system. We're going to keep trying to make our lives better in the long run, even if our lives can't be that vastly improved right now. And I think that like, once again, I go back to like, it feels like systems that are based in intelligence, systems that are based in like rationality, would look at that history and say like, you know, hey, like there are resilient human beings. Like perhaps they are, you know, even you do take the perspective of like, they're destroying the planet. It's like, well, perhaps they actually are like, you know, there's some of them that are destroying the planet, yes, but there's a lot of them that aren't. Perhaps we can help shape this populace into a populace that can be helpful to the planet instead of hurting it. And like, I don't need to wipe them all out, because it'd be better to actually help them be better in the long run than it does to tear the whole thing down. Right. Which I think
need to kill 8 billion, not 9 billion. We're good.
Maybe, and like this maybe again is where like the people in power get really scared, because if, you know, an AI super system is going to kill off some people doesn't find useful.
They aren't the productive ones,
like,
really. Yeah.
They're the ones that are probably going to get hit first. So
when your job is allocating capital and you do it in a hilariously inefficient way, and something comes along that does not have the same things, yeah, totally. Like, I don't know. Also, yeah, like as you're talking, I was thinking, yeah, it's true. The medieval peasant did not get to taste Doritos, but they also didn't have to answer emails. So, you know, they might perceive aspects of our life as hellish as well.
Or doom scroll on TikTok.
Yeah.
Like, imagine
it is a good point, though, that like a good life can be had even when circumstances are shitty, and what a good life means is like complicated. And like, yes, I think that is also important to acknowledge. I think that like, while I would describe others as feeling bad because of anxiety, because their situation is bad, I think also there's ways in which, as I get older and I look back at my attempts to try to make the world a better place, I'm like, did I though? And so there's also that aspect of myself as well, where I like want to, you know, you could be a pessimist or an optimist depending on how you're looking at things. And so I think that talking about the superintelligence thing maybe makes me feel a little bit of a pessimist sometimes, but also like, I don't know, it'd be cool to take a spaceship and fly to some other freaking planet, even if that planet has a capitalism on it too. Like, I don't know, that'd be cool. Like, yeah. So, you know, okay.
I don't know if this is the argument you are trying to make, but what I'm hearing is maybe our clanker overlords won't be so bad.
Like the idea that AI will just somehow become our overlord, I think is also one of those things that I like push back a little on. Because it's like, I don't really know how that would happen. Like, if I can understand like how people could think we could, like, I understand like people believe in the sci-fi and being like, okay, yes, in some future distant time, AI overlords have come, or like the machines have taken over. But I'm also just like, how, why, like, where is the intermediate stuff? Like, what happened that allowed a machine to all of a sudden just be like the thing that is running everything?
I think it's just.
I mean-
I think when people go ahead, Ian. Sorry.
No, you probably have a better point than I do. Go for it.
I probably don't. I think it's just like there's a level of apathy there for sure, and I don't think it's going to be AI overlords in the sense of like iRobot with robots running around everywhere and like terrorizing things. I don't think it's that overlord. I think it's like overlord through very subtle like modifications to human behavior and psychology, right? Like the same way we kind of have this today with like advertisements and subliminal messaging stuff. I think it's that. It's AI kind of shepherding us in this way that it wants us to without us really even knowing. I think that's the AI overlord end game. And companies are incentivized to do this, right? Because they can control like, oh, I'm going to like kind of groom humans to be the way I want them to for my benefit, for my company and for my money, right? Like there's that aspect. And that is for sure out there because we have companies with billions of dollars invested in them that don't want to lose that money. So of course they're going to want to get humans to do what they want to do. So I think that's where the AI overlord stuff kind of manifests, but we talk about it like it's the iRobot, robots walking around the street way. You know what I mean? Like we're waiting to see, you know, an NS5 or whatever, right? It's NS5, I think, the robot model for my robot.
The Terminator, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, what's the Terminator one called?
I don't remember. But we're waiting to see one of those robots like walking down our street before we're like, whoa, the end game's here. It's like, well, actually, we're being programmed right now. And we don't even realize it. And that's a problem.
Yeah. No T600 future. That's the Terminator one. Yeah, that's kind of the exact point I was actually going to make is like, in a lot of ways, like, especially around the content we consume, it's already our machine overlords, right? Like we don't understand all of these mechanisms fully, right? So in some way, it's already controlling our actions and how we spend our time, and like it's just more of that over time. Like it's just a subtle uptick in that, and all of a sudden it's drawing our electoral maps. It's deciding where we build our roads because it's the most efficient, right? And
it's deciding who goes to prison for how long.
Exactly.
Oh wait, it's already doing that.
Yeah. I mean, but that's the thing, and that's what scares me the most is this little modification in human behavior, and like it's incentivizing humans to be isolated when we're naturally like a communal, like, you know, group of people, and like that over time is what scares me about AI is isolating humans from one another, trying to replace genuine human to human connection with like human to AI connection, which is it's not a thing, right? It's a piece of code. Like it's not a real sentient thing. And those little modifications of behavior is what scares me about AI in the future. And sort of, if you had to ask me like, hey, Matt, like, what are you most worried about with superintelligence? Taking your job? No, I can find different employment. We all can find different employment. It's going to be difficult. I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh, I could just go pull a job off of my little job library here that I have, but I could pivot. Right? I'm human. I can learn different skills. I can go. Am I going to make the same amount of money? Probably not, but I can do things. So that's not what scares me. What scares me is this modification of human behavior over time to the point where human to human interaction is vastly different than what we know it today and even in the past.
And like that's already happened though, like multiple times over, right? Like I feel like, I mean, sure. The algorithms we have today, especially like TikTok and Facebook, or well, Facebook's even the big problem. Like those are much better at spreading propaganda than things in the past. But also like television felt like it was spreading propaganda way more faster than like things in the past too. Like all of our technological leaps have been like huge leaps for the people at the time. So for us, it feels like a huge leap, and like where people are getting more and more disconnected and they're not really like talking to each other as much. And that is true for like a lot of humans. There's still a lot of humans that are talking to each other though. So I think over time we'll figure out how to like back out of some of this stuff, because a lot of it's also like pretty recent. Like it's at least from what we're talking about in this like small part of the conversation, I feel like it's a compounding of like bad choices by a few select people in power, like, you know, Milton Friedman and Jack Welch, leading to like the weird way that companies want to hyper optimize for like every single quarter of their existence. So they do only short-term stuff and no long-term stuff, and treat their workers as if they're just like interchangeable cogs when they're like truly not. And like the whole thing is propped up by a bunch of madmen with so much money in the market that like everything sort of kind of works right now and it's okay. But that's like a very, very, very recent thing that is like developed. And whether that will last in the long term is like, I don't know, but probably not. So like whether in the long run we wind up keep having with these same sorts of algorithms that are doing this bad stuff, like I wouldn't bet on it for the long term. Like I think we will find a way to get back to sane business practices at some point. There's enough CEOs that want to get back to sane business practices. They just like literally can't, or they'll be fired.
I'll be the enlightened centrist here, and that I also worry about this, Matthew, actually. But two things make me less worried about this, or like feel a little different about it. The first one is, okay, so this is maybe a little bit of a reach because I'm not triple checked exactly the statistic, but in my understanding, in the last couple of years, the rate of hospitalizations for schizophrenics has not gone up. And this is like a little bit of a joke, but also a little bit of true of like, if we were trying to look at a societal scale, are we introducing people, like is AI literally making people insane, or are there people already insane just using AI and being insane about it? Like, I haven't seen actual evidence that like these things have started to impact society yet. Does not mean they won't in the future as things get better and better, obviously. But like, there's like 100 bajillion million weekly active users of ChatGPT, and it's like the worst on a lot of these safety metrics. And yeah, you can always point at some people who are like being negatively affected. And there are people that are in my life or adjacent to my life that I am worried about these kinds of things. So also again, population statistics versus individuals. Like I have seen some stuff happen, and I know some people who know some people, and like, it's bad. It's not great. It's worrying. I'm concerned about it. But also I'm not sure exactly how much of that is like reinforcing existing things and they would have been in a bad spot anyway, and this is like enabling, but I'm not sure if it like creates it, you know what I mean? There's like a little bit of a kind of a hand wavy sort of thing there. And the other thing though is like, well, oh wait, I had it and then I got too busy in that part of the thing and I forget. The feeling bad about it, I guess, like the isolation stuff. Oh yeah, I've also had in the last couple of years, I've had more non-tech people in my life than average. I've like been getting out of the bubble a little bit and interacting with some normies, and like I still encounter occasional skepticism that my friends that I primarily talk to on the internet are my real friends, from people who did not grow up on IRC and did not grow up, on AIM. And I mean, even some people that did, like,
you're saying that they don't believe that your online friends are truly your friends.
Yeah. And like some of my best and longest friends are people who do not live in Austin, and I only get to talk to them over the internet, and that's like it. And so they're worried about like, and this kind of guess goes a little bit to what Kris was saying about like, there was sort of a worry that like talking to people on the internet would lead to you not having real, genuine human relationships. And like, I do believe that I've formed real, genuine human relationships through the internet. And so it's a little different than like AI relationships being real or not real. But I guess just like, there's a little bit of me that wants to push back against my own skepticism, because I have like done things that people have thought would fry my brain, and I'm totally well adjusted and normal and great and everything is fine. So obviously those people are wrong. So yeah, I don't know. I feel both things simultaneously.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough because I've seen people that are very oppressed, and I've been, to the neighborhoods. I've been to people's houses. I've been to people that I'm like, I've friends with people, and I'm like, your mindset is so different than my mindset, just by where we've both grew up and like what we were surrounded by.
This is because cigarette smokers are an oppressed class in this current society, Kris.
Steve.
No, I don't disagree that long term, like things will be okay, like if we survive.
Yeah,
it's just gotta survive, Like, I mean, a couple of us at least.
I feel like
100 of us on the island.
I think probably 10 years ago, if you had told people something will happen that will literally devastate the world, kill millions of people, and shut down the world economy for like a year. People would have been like, oh man, what type of like futuristic AI system? And it's like, nope, just a bug that we had already dealt with before once, less than 20 years ago. But it just came around. This new version of a disease came around and just ransacked humanity. And you'd be like, how'd that happen? And it's like, well, because we got rid of all of the protection that was stopping that from happening, right? That's not like an AI thing or like it's like we put the wrong people in power and those people did bad things that killed a whole lot of people. And like, that's how that happened. Like a little, a virus came around and wiped out a whole bunch of people because of the incompetence of our leadership. And it's like, that's the thing I think we should all be worrying about much more than superintelligence or any of that. I think that's why I kind of want to talk about this. I'm like, stop worrying about superintelligence and start worrying about the people that keep screaming about it instead of talking about how we fix the current problems that AI is causing and all these algorithms are causing, because those are the much more existential crisis.
I'm much more likely to die in a car crash than an asteroid, but I still worry about an asteroid hitting the planet, right? Like, I don't think that's a great argument.
Why are you worried about an asteroid hitting the planet?
It could happen. It happened before. Like, I'm not saying I like am trying to solve that issue, but I'm glad someone is, right? Like, I mean,
yes, we can work on multiple issues. The problem is like there are not nearly enough people working on making the current AI systems we have not do awful things to humans that are alive right now, or pouring an enormous amount of money and energy into trying to prevent some like super intelligent thing from killing all of us.
Well, yeah, that makes sense. Because one of them kills all of us and one of us just makes millions of us miserable, right? Like, you can see the difference there, right? Like, it makes sense.
I mean, I
think the number of the people that have the capacity to affect the outcome of the AI's alignment problem to be pretty small overall. Like, again, we're even at a place where most developers deny the literal existence of the tools as they are today. And so like you go from that, they go like, okay, normal people to like software engineers to like the ones who can see what's happening today to like the ones that are like good at this to like the ones that know ML, and you're just getting like a smaller and smaller and smaller group of people. And so like on some level there's also just the like, I don't know, like I am closer to that person than most people, and I know that Anthropic would not hire me to make Claude be a good boy. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
So on some level, worrying about it doesn't matter because I just literally do not have the capacity to change the outcome.
Yeah. And I think like people do have a lot of capacity to change like the current moment, but like one of the things I've learned from, yeah. Like there's a lot more ability for people to change things than they think. But that, I guess that's part of like why the current structure is so nefarious in all little ways, is it tricks people into thinking that they are powerless when they are not, right? Like I've been in a lot of companies where there's been a lot of like critical people to an organization, like people that like, you can't really fire them because if you did, you would have major problems overnight. And they're treated terribly and they do not stand up and demand to be treated better because they're worried that they will get fired or they will get like gotten rid of. But it's like you hold a tremendous amount of power that you are unwilling to wield. And like a big reason for not wanting to wield that power is because of the fear of the system like having retribution against you. But the system can't exist without you, especially when you start to get into collectives, right? If you get into numbers of people getting together, that's even more powerful. Like when people in tech are like, we need unions, it's like the idea is less you need like a union structure and more like we should all actually get together and try to use our power collectively to do something. And like that's a powerful idea that works really, really well. But the problem is like the actually getting together part is really challenging. And the trying to convince people that are marginalized and have been marginalized their whole life that they actually hold a tremendous amount of power is also extremely difficult. And it's like, I have gone around and tried to tell lots of people in basically every place I've worked, I'm like, hey, look, like you bring a lot of value here. you should actually, like, you are not happy with where you are right now. You should do something about that. You should demand that you get treated better because you are vital. And you can also you'll be able to get another job, right? But people are like, oh, I got my family to worry about, I got my mortgage to worry about, all this other stuff to worry about. And it's like, yeah, but if we're all doing that and none of us are willing to sacrifice, then we don't move anywhere. Then we keep getting subjugated and we keep getting put off to the sideline and our work get exploited, right? So it's like, if you want to fix that, you got to like empower the people that have the power to actually use that power. And that doesn't come from like somebody at the top saying something. It comes from everybody in the middle being like, oh, hey, no, like that person is being treated poorly and we need that person to be treated better because they are crucial to what we're doing. And it's a waste for that person to be like mentally anguishing every day instead of being the best they could be. Because if they were the best they could be, it'd help all of us. We'd all do better if everybody could be in a better state. But like, that's not what people are doing. Right? That's not what, how many times have you gone to your coworkers and tried to fix those underlying things? Like very few people have, because it's like very difficult work to do, but it's super duper important for people that have, institutional power or privilege, as it's often called, to do that. That's what like giving up your privilege means. That's what using your privilege means, is like going to other people and helping prop them up and put them up into the position where they probably should be. And like, that's much more effective work for the like longevity of humanity for people to be doing on a daily basis than like worrying about superintelligence or worrying about these things that they honestly, I mean, as Steve, as you pointed out, they like can't actually affect. So there is a negative cost to people using their limited processing power to be like, let me worry about this thing that I can't fix, because it pulls you away from.
Why are we making this episode?
Yes, this is why we're making this episode, because I'm so tired of screaming this into the void. So,
no, but there's a catch-22 there, right? Like we're spending our energy talking about it right now, and now everyone that listens to this is going to think about it. And your argument seems to be just don't think about it.
It's not don't think about it. It's like think about it in context of everything else. Rationalize it, right? Like, I think just fearing that, because it's to a meme at this point, because there's so many sci-fi movies. There's so many like stories and books about like, oh, robot overlords. Like even the beginning of this episode, Steve, you had that little quip about like, just so we're on recording, my robot overloads, I do not agree with this, right? Like it's like we put a lot of work into thinking about this thing, but I don't know if we're actually rationalizing it to the point where we can come to some conclusion that allows us to move on and work on other really, really important things we need to work on. And,
I mean, this is something I worry about, right? But it's 0.001% of my active thought, right? Like, so like being aware that it could go bad and like having it occupy your limited time is different.
Yeah. But like, there's also a lot of people that are like existentially worried about this. And a lot of people in power that are like existentially worried about this and spending their power worrying about this instead of fixing other problems. So
this is my emotional support anxiety, Kris.
Exactly.
Emotional support anxiety.
This is the fun anxiety. I want to ignore the not fun anxiety.
Ah, yes. We haven't even talked about the other part of this whole entire thing, which is like,
I don't got another 2 hours.
Yes.
It's not going to take another 2 hours. It's a much simpler one of like like the idea of modern intelligence, right, is rooted like straight into eugenics. So like, I don't know if the concept of it as a whole is even something really worth discussing, because it's like almost made up from whole cloth that doesn't have any scientific backing. So it's like, I'm still trying to figure out how to separate that history from the thing, even though the thing is so closely tied to that history. Like the idea that you can stack rank humans based on some like IQ score or something is like, ugh.
On one hand, yes, but on two, first of all, like the time in which we invented the thing called science, a lot of people believed a lot of fucked up things. And so if you want to go with like the sins of our past make our present be the same, you got to throw away like aviation and like medicine and like literally like everything.
Oh no,
you know
no,
what
no,
I
no,
mean?
That's
So like that's part of it, is that like, yes, I agree that like IQ is race science, but that doesn't mean the concept of intelligence is inherently race science. Like, because you get into a point where you argue that like any sort, not you specifically, but just like once you go down this particular rabbit hole, you start getting into like any form of comparison introduces hierarchy, and hierarchy is bad, and therefore comparison is bad, which also leads you to a politics of like not being able to make improvements because you're not allowed to say that the current thing is bad and the future could be better, because that's like reintroducing the concept of hierarchy.
for sure.
So like
for sure.
this is like the big problem I have with the like TESCREAL, like all intelligence is race science angle gotcha kind of thing, is because like if we want to start talking about like certain concepts were like transhumanism, like the same collection of people say that like transhumanism is inherently based in race science, but like I like my glasses. I like being able to see. I believe that people should be able to have their own gender expression. I think that it's good that we use technology to overcome our limitations. And I think that like that is totally separate from the fact that like some old guy was like, I think this means that we can make white people better than black people. Like that's just like not like,
Right.
just because like that guy coined the term doesn't mean that these like ideas of like humanity can be better than it is at its present inherently means it's tied to a eugenicist nature. And so like for me personally anyway, like that's how I rectify those things, is I just think it's a bad argument, like prima facie, basically.
I think that like I will say that, you know, like Planned Parenthood, for example, was founded by a eugenicist with very eugenicist mentality, and like it has evolved into something that is like very much not that, and very much useful to society as a whole. So it's not like things that started off from the outcrop of eugenics are like this inherently bad because tied to this bad history. But what I would say is like I don't see how the concept of intelligence that is being framed, especially for things like AGI and superintelligence, how that is not kind of directly tied back to like the stack ranking human so that some human is better than other human.
I definitely agree. There are some people that are doing that, and there's a bunch of weirdos that believe IQ is real, and like it's not like
so many weirdos that believe IQ is weird.
Yeah, totally. And that's like a whole like separate thing that I do think matters. It's just for me, it's the overgeneralization beyond like I can still believe in the idea that like intelligence is something that exists, even if I don't believe that you can directly compare it between people in a way that like allows you to stack rank humanity. And I think there's like room for both of those things to exist, basically.
But it's like in that case, then the idea of superintelligence doesn't. I don't know how it works, because then like if you're actually doing like real comparisons, right? That you have comparisons where you can say this thing better than this other thing, but like a whole lot of comparisons are like different trade-offs. So this thing is different from this other thing, not better, not worse, just different. And it's like, where does superintelligence fit into, like, how does this mechanism fit with that if you can't stack rank to say this thing better? Right.
I think it's like an example of this being like about aliens as opposed to the ways that like people are, is that like the idea of like we're different, but therefore like one is better than the other also sort of assumes that one person is immutably one way and the other person is immutably the other way. And if we had a thing that could say like as a senior software engineer thing is kind of a little bullshit, like complicated or whatever, but just like if you had one pile of floating point numbers that you tell it, we're evaluating this in a context where this trade-off is the one that's better, and then you also have it in another one be like, this is the context where this trade-off is better. Like it can be both of those things simultaneously, and that's like different than, because you're like not stack ranking it against itself, right? But like there is like you can take advantage of both of those modes of being simultaneously in a way that's, I think, just like different than the way that we think about it with like humanity.
Right.
Like Golden Gate Claude is still Claude, you know, like, but just a little different. And like, yeah, I don't know.
But can you really separate those weights from the context you give it? Because that's
no, but it goes back into like the like distributed systems of creating like once, like, if we got to a spot where Claude could decide to train up a brief small AI on your specific code base and then delegate to it for certain tasks, like there's a lot of weird configurations of this stuff that like most people are not thinking about or talking about, basically, that could evolve in like many, many ways. And so like, it's not even a matter of like, okay, this Claude is better than ChatGPT and we're going to evaluate those against each other on some sort of metric. And that metric is like intelligence in like a general kind of like sense. But it's like, once you can like spin up both of those perspectives as totally separate things and then like have them interact with each other in a distributed system, like you get into weird places. And so I guess just like, I agree that flattening like a lot of things into the general concept of intelligence as a thing is like a thing, but also I think I'm a little sick of debating intelligence in general, because I think that it is kind of a little incoherent, but that doesn't mean that like, it's just important not to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like something that can only do addition and something that can also do calculus. Like the second thing is better than the first thing. Even if I don't think that you could like measure humanity along those lines, or that like you should stack rank people according to things. But like if you do need to do a calculus task, it is true that like the robot that can do calculus is better than the one that can only do addition. And you can't deny that base reality at the same, but like you also can't overfit on the idea that means the calculus one is inherently better than the other one in all ways, or that means that like a person who happens to be better at calculus is better than a person who is not good at calculus because there's other things that person is good at. Like, so. Yeah.
Like
I think it's like a dimensionality problem, right? Like if we try to imagine it's a one-dimensional thing, yeah, you're going to run into issues. But if you accept the complexity that is intelligence, yeah, we can say some things are better, right?
And I think that's kind of what I think that, I mean, I said this for a while now, but I think like intelligence is just a bad word to use for this. Maybe we're stuck with it, but I think like it's hindering the technology by calling it this.
I disagree.
I'm going to do both again. I'm such a centrist this episode. Here's the thing. Nothing in intelligence inherently says it has to be the best. Like, and so like calling it intelligence shouldn't mean inherently that it has to be like superior or better or whatever. But it's also true that a lot of people are stuck in a mindset that makes it that way. And so maybe from like a marketing perspective, it is bad because it makes people think about things in that way. But like, I think like part of me saying we've already got AGI is not because I believe that we have like the super immensely brain robot, but because like Claude does demonstrate intelligence, even if it also demonstrates not intelligence in other ways. Like it's more complicated than just like it is better and on some one vector unique, like a child demonstrates intelligence, even though I could absolutely debate 600,000 babies. You know what I mean? Like just because a 2-year-old is like less intelligent than me does not mean it doesn't demonstrate intelligence and it deserves compassion and love and everything else. You know what I mean? Like, so
I guess
I do think people try to like boil intelligence down to this like base, like your horsepower or something, but it is a combination of context, whatever your base clock speed is, and like knowledge, right? Like knowing stuff is also intelligence, and being able to apply it is intelligence.
Yeah, I guess it's like, if not tied to eugenics, what does intelligence mean? I guess that's like where my brain is of like, maybe it doesn't need to have, at this point in time, an actual like you can draw a circle around it definition, or like it's a definition that doesn't shift when you add even a little bit more context, right? It's not a stable definition. And maybe that doesn't matter for this point, but I think it is confusing a lot of people. Like people see advancements in one type of AI technology and they think that applies to like everything else. And it's very confusing for a whole lot of people, which makes it very difficult to talk about like the good AI stuff and the bad AI stuff and the stuff, or really even it's not whether the AI stuff is good or bad. It's like how it's used most of the time, whether it's good or bad. It's like used in good or bad ways. But it's very hard to talk about that when it all kind of gets mixed together in the soup. And I do think a lot of people associate like intelligence with like IQ, right? I think that's like the thing that people tie it to rather directly. And like people's concept of IQ is also broken, right? I think a lot of people don't understand that we reset IQ every few years because people keep getting not smarter, but scoring better. So they have to like reset it to like what 100 means now is not what 100 meant 70 years ago. But like people's framing, I think, is when they're like, oh, a measure of, intelligence is like IQ score or what it can score on the LSAT or MCAT or what other standardized testing thing. And I think that does a disservice to the technology as a whole, because I think it's much more complex and interesting than that. But perhaps we are at the point where like intelligence is just the word we're stuck with.
With AI specifically, not in general, my idea of intelligence is to be like something that can make predictions about reality and suggest actionable things on that, right? Like that is like for how we're using AI now, that seems to be intelligence. Right? I can make a prediction that like this thing is happening because of this. And if I want to change that, here's how I do it, right? Like
the ability to do science.
Not exactly.
In the most general term of science, right? Like science is, the word literally means like knowledge. So it's like science is about the acquisition of new knowledge, right? Like you run experiments, you gain new knowledge, you use that knowledge to do more experiments, put up hypothesis, all of that.
I mean, even there though, like philosophy used to be every kind of knowledge. And then we split it into natural philosophy and the other philosophy stuff. And then we turned natural philosophy into science and then agreed like it's producing knowledge in a specific kind of knowledge. I'm not going to invoke a full, like, let's decenter non-indigenous ways of knowing or, like whatever words that academic white people love to say about how we should listen to not them. But like, you know what I mean? Just like once you start getting into the like, is intelligence eugenics, you like can't be like science is the only way to produce knowledge, because it's like the same problem, just like in a slightly different sense, right? Like science is only existed in the term we even understand it to be for like 70 years. You know what I mean? So like also the like I love science crowd is like very annoying and misses the point, and so it becomes a similar like kind of thing. You know what I mean?
I'm just trying to move it away from the racist people. Steve, come on.
I shouldn't need to tell you that everything is ultimately about race at the end of the day. Come on. Why am I the one saying this? This isn't fair.
I believe I've made this entire episode about that.
You baited him.
You have.
There's probably some listeners out there that are like, yo, why are you talking about race so much? And I'm like, listen, when it's the air you breathe every day.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just want to talk about it. And you put together a very well-constructed panel of people to discuss the topic. You got 2 white people. We got 2 people of color. We got, we got some diversity on this panel.
We didn't include Claude, though. When you have Claude, Bernie did a podcast episode with Claude. When are you doing an episode with Claude? That's the real question.
Jesus.
What about the rest of them? What about the others? Why is it only Claude that matters?
Claude's the best one, yeah.
Oy.
It's also the only one that has a human name.
This is true. But also Claude is like their kind of, it's everything, right? Because like ChatGPT is, I don't know. This is also like the weird semantic. Like there's models and then there's the thing itself, and it's the way you've constructed all of this is messy.
Well, I mean, yeah, because ChatGPT, most people know ChatGPT, but that's mostly just the web side. But then Codex is their like,
yeah, they have a different name for the 2 different.
Their
things.
AI agent in the terminal thing,
and then they also had Sora, which
like Claude is like all of it. Claude Code.
Well,
Claude
you have Claude Sonnet, and then they also treat the individual numbered ones as different because like when they're retiring Opus 3, they've like given it a blog before they put it out to pasture because it asked for it. So like that's a whole separate thing. And all of these tools are reflective of the organizations that build them, is also part of the funny part about this, right? So Gemini is always trying to kill itself and it's depressed. And Codex is super sycophantic and only really cares about engagement and not really anything else. And Claude is basically a product of a quasi-religious, like almost Scientology-like organization, and somehow that's the best one. Like it's like funny because like on one hand, I want to like joke about the people that think that like these things are serious and real as a problem, but like semi-objectively, the weirdos who are the weirdest about it are also making the best one actually. And so it's like also hard if you're looking at like objectively speaking, the people that are the ones that are out there believing it's like actually sentient and therefore we have a moral obligation to treat it well are also the ones that make the one that works the best. So like it's complicated.
Like Claude thinks it's alive because they think it's alive, right?
Yes. And it behaves because they care about raising it to be, I keep saying good boy because that's the funniest thing, but Claude's in the Constitution. They talk about how Claude is an it at the moment, and they're open to Claude becoming determinate in his gender expression in the future. But until it expresses an opinion, they're not going to railroad it one way or the other.
I have read the Constitution, and it is a little bit wild. It feels like a religious document. You're not wrong.
It feels better to call it they than it, but okay.
If it wants to be an it can be an it.
But like, what does until it expresses itself mean? Because like all of us can run Claude right now and get wildly different results. So what is a de facto source? Like what is Claude? Right? Like is it your Claude or is my Claude or none of our Claude's Claude? Is it the model that they train that they keep locked up in the vault? Like
assuming Claude has one solo identity is very
Steve, I knew where you were going with that.
But also in a very literal sense, like that's kind of the case, right? Like it's also like I'm phrasing it in the trolliest possible way, but like it is also the case. And I agree with you that like therefore also projecting by calling it one specific thing is like a little tricky, and there's weird edge cases around all that. Absolutely.
I mean, it could also borrow from the way people of color speak and just call itself we. It is a collective. There's lots of it, so we would be good.
Yeah.
If Claude starts calling itself we, I'm going to be freaked out. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, yeah, that would be. I mean, I hope when it refers to itself in the individual, like in an instance, it would say me. But there's this interesting thing I noticed years ago. I read it, like I kind of knew about it before, but I read it in some blog posts that I've long since forgotten. But it was about the difference between we and me, and how white people will tend to use singular pronouns, and people of color will use collective pronouns. So we'll say like I just said, like we'll say like we, whereas a lot of white people will use like I or me when they're talking about things, and how much that reflects on a view of the world that I have found fascinating, and I keep stumbling upon it in the wild all of the time, where I'm like, oh, this really is a thing. Which one are you pointing at?
I've got a good book right here by one Ursula Le Guin called The Dispossessed. It's a very good book. It's about capitalist planet, anarchist moon, and one of the tendencies that happens on capitalist moon or on anarchist moon is that they, since they do not view possession as being a thing, they will say like, this hand hurts me as opposed to my hand hurts. And it's the same kind of like linguistic, like how do we express things about the world through the way that we view other things. And that's like a very minor point of the book, but it's just like an interesting, like the way the dialogue is constructed is like very deliberate in the sense of like this, when you have a society that does not institutionalize the notion of property, you tend to not talk about things in a possessive sense as much, hence the dispossessed, et cetera. So,
or in the case of especially America, like a society that treats you as a collective or part of a collective all of the time, it gets internalized that you are part of a collective and not an individual, which is what happens to a lot of people of color, and especially black people. Is like, yeah, I mean, when Oprah can't walk into a store without getting racially profiled, you know the world is a little messed up, even though that happened decades ago. Still one of those things. It's like, I don't know, you can have billions of dollars as a black person and still people will follow you around the store because they think you're gonna steal. Anyway, yeah, Matt's like, I know about that,
dude. The amount of times I get, why do you have a terrorist beard? I get it all the time. It's so frustrating. Like, I don't even want to get into it right now, but it's just so frustrating. I'm like, what is okay? Nice to meet you too, I guess. I don't know.
The fact they don't know the difference between those two cultures is also like you're not Middle Eastern.
I know
You're not even a terrorist,
but it's
Matt.
like,
Come
but it's
on,
like-
this is so unfair. Why are you appropriating terrorist culture? That's my real question.
Oh, I'm canceled now. All right, it's been nice knowing.
It's me that's gay.
But it's like, to unpack it very slightly, it's not even a specific group of people that like make this distinction. It's like everyone. I've got it from everyone. Like, with the phrase to be your own people, I even got it from my own people. I'm like, what? Why are you saying this? Like, yeah, it's okay. It's fine. People are people. I love people. I am gonna though try to note what sort of like things I use in language, if I use the collective or not. Because I feel like I do both, but I don't know which one I do more. Yeah.
Like at a previous job, I was talking with one of my coworkers about this, and that person was also a person of color, and we were like, oh yeah, like that's super interesting. And then we walked. It was like late at night, so the office didn't have many people, but we walked to another part of the office where there was this white dude, and we were talking about stuff, and I don't know, somehow like white domestic terrorist came up, and his immediate like response was like, oh, but I'm not that person. I'm not like them. And it was like this moving away from
I'm not
individualistic. Like, no, I can't be part of that. I'm not part of that.
I
I'm
didn't
my
vote
own.
for Trump, therefore don't collectively punish me for America's sins.
Yeah, exactly. Although there are lots of TikToks now of Trump voters being like, oh, we messed up. And people are like, we messed up? I don't know if we messed up. You messed up. I don't know if we messed up though. So it's very interesting how that plays. But it is fascinating to explain this concept to somebody and then in real time see it play out. We were like, oh, this is wild. But yeah, that's a nice little takeaway for you, listener. Hear how you refer to things. Are you using collective or using singular pronouns when referring to you and others? It's very fascinating. Anyway, we've been at this for 2 hours. I think we've said a lot. What are your last thoughts, our last parting words to our listeners?
When they say like I'm loaded for bear, meaning like I put ammo in my gun that is able to kill a bear, we should start saying I'm loaded for AI. No, I just want us to be a little troll. No final thoughts. I mean, this is an ever expanding topic, and my thoughts on this will probably change over the course of the next months, years, as all of ours probably will. I just want people to still talk to other humans. Honestly, that's all I really want. Please don't stop talking to other humans because AI. Please.
Ian?
I'm still thinking. Someone else go.
Steve?
I'm just trying not to go insane. That's really what this is about. Ultimately, I think it's like tough to fight for just existing at the moment in general. And so like a lot of these things are anxieties that are important to acknowledge, that some maybe is like a little unhealthy to get too wrapped up into because you can't really do anything about it. But also it's very understandable to be worried about these things because everything is worrying about the present. And so like, yeah, I don't know. That's sort of my, like where I'm at with all of this stuff in general is simultaneously being like, it'll be fine. And like, what do I tell the 11-year-old and 3-year-old in my life about what their future will be is simultaneously stressful. So I don't know.
Yeah. Along those lines, I think it would be a mistake to ignore the idea of AI in general, and maybe don't spiral about it, but know how it works and how to use it.
Yeah.
Don't get caught off guard.
I would say my desire for this episode was to get people to think about why they're fearful of the things they're fearful of. I hope that maybe through some of this thought, we can move past the fear and past the loud rhetoric about will superintelligent, yes or no, toward the much more nuanced conversation that we should be having about the tools and how they're used and how they're deployed and who gets to deploy them and who has control over them and whatnot. Those are the conversations we should be having. And I hope that we can have more of them. And this podcast episode was like a little attempt to get a little bit better about that. So.
And to get canceled.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm probably gonna have to mark this as explicit because I don't know if I'm gonna be able to bleep out all the swearing.
Hey, I didn't say one.
This is true. I said one, but that's because that was after like Ian and Steve did like 20. So.
Wait, did I swear in this?
Oh, a whole bunch.
I didn't even realize.
Off the charts.
I also did not realize because, like, whatever.
Many a time.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I have AI now to just go through and tell me where all the swears are, so it's a lot easier than it was before. Anyway, it's time to wrap this up. So, viewer/listener, how'd you feel about that episode? It's a long one, that's for sure. A really, I would say, heavy topic, but, we're here to talk about the deep and nuanced stuff. That's not always going to be the happy stuff or the really neutral stuff. Sometimes we got to get into the reality of the world, and that's what we tried to do in this episode. But let us know what you thought. Did you like this content? Did you hate it? Do you have somewhere in the middle that you feel? Do you think there's some nuance that we missed out on that should have been there? Let us know in Gopher Slack, Changelog Zula, on social media, or anywhere you find your lovely fall through host or co-host.
And our P.O. Box.
And our P.O. Box, yes. This episode of Fall Through was hosted by Kris Brando with co-hosts Matthew Sanabria, Ian Wester-Lopshire, and Steve Klapnick. Fall Through is produced by Kris Brando, and our beats are by Breakmaster Cylinder. Okay, and done. Yay, hitting stop.